Hey, before we get into this video, I'm making this a sort of test for a shorter form mythology content kind of thing. So if you would like more of these in the future, they're kind of more brief and easier to watch versions, let me know in the comments. I would super appreciate your feedback, but with that said, let's get on with the video. As I have shown dozens of times throughout this series, it is very common for creatures from mythology to be represented in anime and manga. However, it obviously isn't as common for mythology outside of Japan to be shown off, which is why I always get so excited when seeing some Greek mythology get some spotlight. So since Yashahime recently brought up a Gorgon in its most recent episode, I'm taking the opportunity to dive into some history through anime as we talk about Medusa and the Gorgons. If you enjoy these looks into mythology and history behind some of your favorite anime and manga, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more, as well as leaving a comment to let me know who I should talk about next. But with that all out of the way, let's get into it. As far as anime goes, Medusa's namesake being used is probably most famously used as an antagonist in Soul Eater. But you also have all three of the Gorgon sisters, Medusa, Euryale, and Steno, in the Fate series. Of course, it was also recently depicted in Yashahime's Watatsumi no Tamahi, as I mentioned earlier. But what about the actual stories of the Gorgons? More modern depictions of Gorgons will show them as women with snakes for hair and a body which turns into a snake, kind of similar to a lamia. However, in classic Greek myths, they were often just winged demons with tusks, talons, and again, the classic snake hair. The most famous Gorgon throughout mythology are easily the three Gorgon sisters, Steno, Euryale, and Medusa, and while Steno and Euryale were said to be immortal, Medusa was not. There's also often a story about how Medusa was a normal woman who slept with Poseidon and then Athena cursed her by turning her into a Gorgon, but that's a much later variant of the story, and originally all three were just born as Gorgons. In Homer's original telling, there was actually only one Gorgon, but Hesiod's version expanded it to having the three sisters that we know of, albeit the earliest stories of Gorgons only depicted them as serpents who guarded the temples of the oracles, and the actual word Gorgon was never used in those stories. So to say that these tales have been adapted over time is a bit of an understatement. That said, the parents are sort of up for debate as well. Most believe that they were born from Phorcys and Ceto, primordial sea deities, but some tellings say it was instead Phorcys and Gorgo, who was an ancient Gorgon who died in the Titan War. Regardless, the idea of the Gorgon sisters being the only ones is definitely not a correct perspective. However, of course, the ones that we know the most of are going to be the three sisters, and that's where I'm going to focus. Steno was the oldest sister, and our only real information involving her is that she had red snakes for hair, and that after Perseus killed Medusa, she tried to avenge her sister, but failed to do so because of the cap of invisibility which he received from Hades. The middle Gorgon, Euryale, was known for having a deafening scream which was said to be strong enough to shatter stone when her sister Medusa died. And that of course leads us to Medusa herself, who we obviously know the most about. She was said to be the queen of the Gorgons, and if you believe the later stories, she was also a priestess to Athena, who was either gifted the Gorgon-like appearance to fit in with her sisters, or cursed with it. As Gorgons, each sister would turn anyone who looked at them into stone. However, as Medusa was mortal, this became a very interesting case, as even after she was decapitated, anyone who looked at her head would still be petrified. There are several examples of this being used by Perseus, namely petrifying the sea monster Cetus to save Andromeda, or turning the Titan Atlas into stone. But what I think is one of the most interesting parts of the Gorgons is how they changed after Medusa's death. While Gorgons were often considered these terrible monsters to be feared, they eventually went on to become a symbol of protection. For example, amulets worn by both Zeus and Athena to ward away evil thoughts are called Gorgonian. Furthermore, a Gorgon's head was on Zeus's shield, the Aegis. As time passed, the image of Gorgons also shifted more towards these positive features just generally, rarely being seen with tusks, talons, or these bulbous tongues that you'll see here, and instead being shown as beautiful women with hair made of snakes. As I mentioned earlier though, with popular movies having added this snake-like lower body and the more villainous roles in these stories, it seems like the image of Gorgons is still continuing to evolve to this day. And that's where we're going to end it today. If you guys enjoyed this video and want to see more of the mythology and history behind some of your favorite characters in anime and manga, be sure to